So just by way of introduction, my name is Greg Snodgrass. I've been at eBay for 9 years, and I run what we call seller acquisition at eBay. So I have teams of people that talk to sellers, large, small, medium brands, to help them understand the quirkiness of eBay is one of the ways I put it, and to help people get determine whether they want to come sell on eBay, all the way through launching. And Steve Adams is here, who runs my integration team. So he knows everything from A to Z about getting up and running on eBay. And then we have teams that also help from a scaling perspective. As you know, on eBay, really all I care about, and Steve and anyone at eBay, is our sellers selling something. So that's really our only motivation. We win when you win. So what I'm hoping to do here is, I'm pretty casual, and so I have some slides, but I'm gonna kind of plow through them relatively quickly, and I'm hoping we can just do a QA session. As we're here, we have a booth as well, as you want to come talk to us individually there, but the main purpose of this trip, and thanks for having us, is just to come connect and see if there's any questions we can answer about eBay. So I'm gonna give this, I don't know, 15 minutes? What do you think, Steve? And we'll go from there. Okay, does that work for everyone? Awesome, thank you. Okay, so just some high-level things about eBay. It's amazing. As I said, I've been at eBay for 9 years and talking to sellers and all sorts of people for that time. And there are some things that, at this point, people still don't know about eBay. eBay is a pretty big company. Obviously, one of the more admired companies in the world. For a lot of reasons, which I'll get into shortly. It differentiates us from a lot of our competitors. There are as of earnings last week, 179 million active buyers on eBay. So that's a global number, and those are people that have bought something in the prior year, right? So it is a massive marketplace. 90 billion in sales globally as well. About 40% of that is in the United States, just to give you context, how that breaks down. And mobile's obviously a massive growth. When I started at eBay, I think we were like 10% mobile, right? And just in 10 years, we've seen this massive growth where almost 65% of all sales or purchases are touched by mobile. And obviously all the downloads to go with that. So eBay, very active, big brand that everyone is aware of. Some of the things that people aren't aware of. This is my favorite. When I go to a party or talking to friends, everyone still thinks eBay is an auction site, right? And actually, I forgot to do what I always do at the start. I'm going to pause for a second. So I always start with the same thing, and I neglected it. I was blown away by Jeremy's introduction. Will you raise your hand for me if you sell on eBay right now? Okay, awesome. Well, you're going to be bored senseless here for a few minutes. Can you, and if you sold on eBay, and maybe you don't any longer, okay, a few of you, and then I assume everybody's bought something on eBay. Can I show of hands there? Is that, all right, cool. You'd be surprised. Like I met a guy I was at the jewelry show in Las Vegas last year, and I met a guy who had never heard of eBay. So you just kind of figure it out. So I always lead with, eBay is not an auction site. Yes, we have auction business, and we love, for example, our collectibles business, which is, whether it's comic books or trading cards or whatnot, heavy on auction. But otherwise, eBay is about new products sold at a fixed price, right? And so almost 90% now is sold at a fixed price. Over 80% of the products are new. And so yes, eBay has a super long tail. You can pretty much find anything you want to on eBay, but the bulk of the products are new and at a fixed price, and that surprises a lot of people. Over 70% of the items are ship free as well, right? To me, table stakes now. If you're not shipping, free shipping, unless you're shipping something super big or super heavy, you need to have free shipping. And most people are unaware that somewhere mid-60s, 65%, I think is the stat here, yes, are delivered in 3 days or less. Okay, and so my wife, who I'll just say this out loud, is an Amazon bigot. She loves Amazon more than anything, and it's been a rough 9 years. She loves Prime, right? But eBay, in the same way, can deliver in a timely fashion, right? So if you want to come to the booth, I'll give you some Katie Snodgrass stories later about Amazon. And every time she drives, well, anyway, it's a long story. Been together for 32 years, so it hasn't destroyed that. And then just some stats, like there's a velocity, right? There's big velocity on eBay. There's a lot of buyers, and we're selling, regardless of what the category is, a lot of items, whether it's video games, action figures, handbags, hammers, we're moving them, all right? So why eBay? And so I just and forgive me, some of these slides are kind of casual because I just kind of put my own thoughts up there. To me, number one, and I get asked all the time, what marketplaces should I be on? And let me answer that question first. You should be on all of them, right? If you're not on Amazon, Walmart, eBay, you're missing out on an opportunity because fundamentally, and I'm skipping a slide ahead, the buyers you find on eBay, the last study we did, about 70% of those buyers are going to be, you're not going to find them elsewhere. You're not going to find them on Amazon. You won't find them if you have a brick and mortar. They're not coming into your store. So if you're not on eBay, you're missing out on a whole set of buyers that are looking for your products, right? And most important, as part of that, eBay, we don't compete with you, right? We don't own a single piece of inventory, nothing. There's no eBay warehouse. There are no eBay airplanes or drones. There's none of that, right? And to me, that's all we're motivated is to provide an amazing buying experience for buyers, right? Which means bringing sellers who can deliver a great experience. So there's no private label brands. We have no, I don't know, what business should we get into, Steve? Maybe men's shoes or something like that. But there's no private label brands. The fees, even when you look at combine it with the PayPal fees, and by the way, we can talk about eBay as have launched our own payments solution, which is slowly rolling out, and by the end of this year, 2019, will be a significant part of our business. The fees are lower, like when you compare and contrast. Jeremy was mentioning profitability, and I'll show you a slide here in a second, which just came out the other day, which I found interesting. And we only win when you win, literally. Like, the only time we make any money is if our sellers are selling something. And we have reach, 190 markets, right? So all over the world, people are coming to look for your items, and we're always advocating for our sellers. I think that's one of the big things, and one of the favorite things I like to highlight recently is we started this program last year called Retail Revival, and now I think we're in 5 cities trying to help small sellers, kind of the mom and pop guys on Main Street, get up and running and expand their businesses by using eBay. And so we've just recently, I don't know, this a couple days ago, Greensboro, North Carolina, or Halifax, Nova Scotia, I don't know, the Akron, Ohio, there's a whole bunch of them where we're going out and helping kind of building a grassroots movement to help these small sellers up and running. So we're truly, like, listen, eBay wants to make money. We're a public company, but we really look out for the sellers. It's amazing the emails that trickle down to me from Devin Wenig, our CEO. He's like, help this seller, right? And so we're glad to talk about that later. This just came out a couple days ago. I don't know if you follow E-commerce Bytes, which is kind of an eBay marketplace type blog. And this is a very ugly slide because I did this last night. But eBay highly ranked if you go look at this on E-commerce Bytes from a customer service profitability #1 place that the sellers who participated in this survey. Ease of use, easy to get up and running, right? So I recommend go look at Ina's. Go look at her blog, E-commerce Bytes. You can read all about all the different marketplaces on it. So I've touched on some of this. So why list and sell on eBay? And then we're going to kind of get into some tactical stuff here, and then we'll just open up for questions. So diversification. I mentioned, hey, you should be on all the marketplaces. If you're not on eBay, there's really little risk to coming to eBay. I would get all your inventory across all the marketplace, diversify, where you're finding buyers. You're going to drive incremental sales. Like as I said, a lot of the buyers on eBay are not shopping elsewhere. For better or for worse, eBay buyers they love eBay. They love the search. They love the kind of our buyers stay on the site longer on the platform just because it's part of the culture to poke around and see what they can find, see what deals they can find as well. The mobile app rocks, a great source of closing business, right? Like 64%, I think we mentioned. And then I mentioned the international reach on this as well. You can really touch people globally. Okay, so, and Steve, you're going to feel free to kind of jump in here in places. But some keys to selling success, I thought it was appropriate. A lot of you already sell on eBay, and so again, you're not going to see anything amazing here. If you're hearing about something here that you haven't heard about, come talk to us, and we'll be glad to explain some of the new features. #1 thing, if you're selling on eBay, make sure your listings, the images, the descriptions, the titles, make sure all that stuff is polished. It helps in search results. Start using our tools. I was talking to a gentleman up here before we started. Like promoted listings. Promoted listings, which I'll talk about in a second, is a great way to drive traffic and velocity. Promotions managers. Use these tools instead of just throwing up listings on eBay and hoping something will happen. Best offer is one of our biggest growth areas. Give people the opportunity, depending on what you sell, give them the opportunity to make an offer. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it's a tool that works for a lot of people. Global shipping program I'll talk about in a second. And maybe most importantly, and I call number 3 here, is just delivering a good buyer experience. Just make sure you're doing the right thing for people that are buying products from you. If there's a problem, let them know. Make sure you're meeting the shipping metrics that you put on the individual listings. Make sure you have the product available. Make sure there's no out of stocks. All those things come back to bite you. Feedback is super important on eBay. It determines all sorts of things related to kind of risk and trust and how you come up in search. And so not paying attention to those things can cause problems. And there's new tools as well, like volume pricing, that recently launched in the last 5 months or so, where if you're selling items where you can sell multiples, we can show the decrease in price if you buy 5, for example, and that seems to be working pretty well as well. Let's talk a little bit about this. It's really easy to get up and running here. I say it repeatedly. It's not rocket science. And Steve's teams works with sellers all the time. Companies like Seller Cloud, who introduced me. There's all sorts of people that can help you get up and running in a matter of weeks, right? We're not talking months and months to do things. If you have if you're selling on Amazon already, you've got all the content, you've got all the images, whatnot, boom, we'll get you up and running very quickly on eBay. You just need to decide how you're going to get set up. Are you going to do it through a partner? Are you going to do it on your own? Do you have the expertise to connect from an API perspective? We can help talk you through all those type of options. That's what we do every day. And then number 3 up here, just make sure that, hey, that you can deliver. Because if you can't deliver, that's a problem, right? And that's not just a problem on eBay, that's a problem everywhere. It's amazing how many super big companies actually, think the Fortune 1000 type companies who just think it's just here, I'll just put my stuff up on eBay and it's going to rock and roll. I suspect most of the people in this room understand that it's a sales channel you need to manage on a daily basis. Promoted listings, right? So we talked about this. So this is literally a low risk, you only pay something when an item sells. So we're not asking for any money up front, but basically you can bid on moving your items up in the search results. And we've seen it, like this last statistic, exposure up by 30%. And again, you're not paying for anything unless the item sells. Something I highly recommend, literally every seller that goes out the gate from Steve here, is we put them into promoted listings. It's a great way to get velocity going, especially at the start. So we can talk about that if you have questions there. Promotions manager, mentioned it before. This is all the classic, hey, if you spend over $100, whatever, we'll send you a coupon, or if you buy one, get one free, all these type of offers. Again, these are tools that a lot of people don't leverage. If you do leverage them, we see the velocity and the conversion improving. A couple last things, and then let's just go to Q&A, because that's why I'm here. Global shipping program, if you're aware of this.Maybe you don't have the capability to ship internationally. eBay has a program, ship your items to Kentucky, then it's on us to get it globally to 100 plus countries. So it's a pretty simple program that works. Just like someone places an order and you send it to Kentucky, and we working in partnership with Pitney Bowes there, then we get it sent out globally. Highly recommend you look at this. International, 60% of our business. There's a lot of buyers out there. eBay guaranteed delivery. This is a big one as well that rolled out last year. So if you have 1 day or same day handling for the things you're selling, you should get into this program. Basically, if you can turn around things in that 1 day, and you're going to meet that 3-day delivery time for most of your items or whatever they are, we will flag you as EGD, which means eBay guaranteed delivery, and it improves the search status, and it also, you can filter on it, and it's a mechanism, especially in the kind of the 6 weeks leading up to holidays or whatnot. People are looking to make sure, boom, this is a trusted seller who will deliver. Right? So highly recommend you look into this. Buyers love it, and they love the eBay guaranteed delivery flag. And finally, it's my last slide, so forgive me if I'm not dragging on with a lot of slides. I'd rather just talk. These are some of the obvious things. bad things on eBay will never ever help you. So avoid, like, before we came in here, there was a conversation about IP infringement type stuff. So that's a problem on eBay as well, right? And brands are always policing listings. So if you don't have permissions to do that, avoid it. If something wrong is happening and you do have permission, we have a Vero program to help with that, right? And they'll talk to you and they'll get things sorted out. Don't miscategorize stuff. Don't put up duplicate listings. Don't request people, hey, email me and we'll figure this thing out. Like all these type of policy violations add up, and it's hurt sellers in the past. So we want to avoid those type of things. To me, the biggest one is no out of stocks, right? If you don't have that product, or you get to a point where your inventory is low, just take it off, because those are the killers. When sellers come to me with problems and they tell me it was an out of stock item, I'm like, there's not much I can do there, right? That's your business. You should make sure you have the inventory that you're selling. And that's just not on eBay, that's everywhere. Customer service, again, this all goes into your feedback scores. Make sure you're responding people, make sure you have somebody who on a daily basis on your team is looking for any customer service issues, any questions. You'd be amazed how many sellers hit my inbox like, well, I got back to them in like 3 or 4 days. Well, if you're away on vacation, that's one thing, but this is, when they call Amazon, they're getting a response, right? Boom, and we should be delivering the same thing. And then something we've seen recently, like if you don't have to exclusively rely on fulfillment by Amazon for your shipping, great. We have a lot of sellers who are kind of splitting things up depending on what the inventory is. We love to not see things in Amazon boxes, number one, and then number two, just from a cost perspective, right? Top-rated sellers. I put the link up on this. It's on a flyer out at our booth as well. If you can get there, helps in search as well. And then the last thing, just is because it's brand new and we're just learning about it, is we're collecting tax for, on a state-by-state basis as it rolls out. So eBay is able to do that, and we're starting to do it for all of our sellers in the states that we have to do it. So Washington, Minnesota, and Iowa, I think we're the first ones. It's interesting to watch how that's going psychologically. A lot of people don't like paying taxes, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. And actually, we have a lot of eyeballs on New Jersey here when that rolls out, because that's going to be interesting, because that's a good chunk of eBay's business comes out of New Jersey. So that's it. My goal was to keep that tight. So we'd love just to answer any questions, if that's what you'd like to do, or we can meet you out at the booth later on. So shoot. Yes, sir.
Could you discuss in detail a little more about the global shipping payment and all the shipments and all that? Is it with PayPal?
Yeah, repeat the question, please.
Yeah, it was the
Speak right into that.
right. So the question was about how does the global shipping program work in general. So global shipping program, basically what you do is within your listings, you basically opt in and say, I'm willing to sell this globally. I want to sell this through, but you're not selling it direct globally, you're selling it through the global shipping program. So at that point in time, what'll happen is, am I not close enough? Apologies. So at that point in time, what happens is eBay, when a buyer in one of these international locations identifies an item they want to purchase, we provide a tax estimate, we provide shipping estimates, we provide the whole gamut of things that buyer would need. Buyer places the order, you receive an order that is cost or price plus shipping, whatever it was, to Kentucky. You send it to Kentucky, we fulfill it on your behalf. Like, there is no special payment or other processes or taxes, duties, fees that you need to account for. All of that's been done on the back end through it. The customer does, correct. Yes, so everything is handled. You just don't see it. It's not something you have to manage.
What about the claims? Certain countries very difficult to ship, like Brazil, Italy, impossible to ship.
And you will have a lot of countries that are not included in the global shipping program. Top of my head, I'm not clear on all of them, but it is the vast majority nowadays. But when it does come to disputes and issues, there are opportunities, obviously, for eBay to intervene. But the reality is, for a lot of the products that can't be shipped there, like perfumes and things of that nature, like our categories will identify those and call those out. Knives and things of that nature, UK has challenges with that. We try to get in the way there and intervene as well. And one of the things you will find is Pitney Bowes, and because eBay is taking on this responsibility for the international shipping, Pitney Bowes will open a package, review the contents, confirm that it is what it is, seal it back up, and then ship it out to the customer. So we are putting checks in as well. If there is something that we can identify as risk early, we'll try to do that right away. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, thank you.
What about insurance, things like that, like high value items, $600, $7,000 items, how's the insurance work on that? Is it gonna be a flat rate? Is it gonna be based on the volume of the dollar amount?
So it's a good question, because we don't necessarily put insurance in there, but I think there are limitations on some of the dollar amounts and the high-value items that can be shipped. Yeah, and so that's a great question, and I hate to kind of leave that one out there, but I've got to research that one a little bit. Any other questions? Yes.
It says that you can opt that you don't accept returns, right?
You can,
Right, so then when
yeah.
you opt that, you never win, because they always return the item anyway.
And
So that's, but why do they even have that?
so I've used it for a few products like I'm selling. If I'm selling like a used video game from one of my kids or something like that, I'll put, I don't accept returns. If it arrives in a condition that doesn't meet my description and somebody says, you know, this is not the item I ordered or it's broken or whatever, you know, eBay, like any other marketplace, is going to allow you to return that item if somebody's saying it's not what it was described to be. Unfortunately, we do have some characters that may, I think the example you're going after is somebody saying it wasn't what it was supposed to be, even though it was. Right.
Brand new camera, and they just returned and said it didn't work.
Right.
So it's brand new, sealed, everything.
And it's one of the biggest challenges about being a marketplace where we're not touching and seeing the goods. And so if the money is going back and forth and the buyer's responsible to pay that return shipping, or, you know, in that case, you know, the seller would be responsible, it does make it a little more difficult. And that is one of the hard parts about managing our marketplace is we don't sell things, so we don't touch them necessarily. And so those are some unfortunate circumstances. If you're looking to scale your business and if you're looking to grow your business on eBay, I wouldn't do a no returns policy. If you really want to touch a customer, especially now, like customers have an expectation that returns are there. Like it's the marketplace is getting easier across the board, you know, for our customers, and so it's an unfortunate situation, and you know, I'm sorry, but that is one of those practices I would not recommend to most large sellers.
When it comes to promoted listings, it's kind of like, it's a little bit of a mystery to me, like what number, what percent you're supposed to put in there.
Sure.
In order to get your, your product to show up and to say, sponsor listing, at the top.
And it is. It's kind of like our search algorithm. Like our search algorithm is like,
Really explain, like,
yeah.
what number places you where,
And so the challenge with that is like there are a lot of things that go into it. It's not just the bid amount. Like we will also look at your seller performance. We'll look at the conversion on that item versus, you know, the rest of the marketplace. We'll look at your policies. Are you offering free shipping? Are you offering free returns? We don't want to just promote somebody that's just buying the page. We want to promote the best product to the consumer. A lot of times what I'll do, you know, with promoted listings is I usually do start relatively low. eBay will make a recommendation and say other folks in this marketplace are bidding X amount. And, you know, if you're, so that's quite a, so that's significant, right? And you know, if you're in, especially dealing in categories that are what I would say a little more mature, where you have a lot of sellers that have had a lot of items on for a long time, a lot of times that additional percentage, you know, placement, you know, on the higher side is not abnormal, but there's not going to, we'll never release like if you do this and this and this, we'll guarantee this spot, because it changes, and it changes based on categories, it changes based on buyer sentiment. It's the same way our best match algorithm works on eBay. Like it feels like there's somebody behind the curtain pulling levers and changing, but a lot of times it changes based upon category, buyer sentiment, seasonality. It could change on a lot of things. So it's very difficult for us to kind of commit out a number and say this is going to work every time, because it won't. It will change. It will evolve. Any question? Yeah.
In terms of Vero, I know eBay has a list of different brands that don't allow you to sell their items without their permission, but I've listed items from brands that are not listed and still have them removed for Vero.
S-
Do you know which brands are allowed?
So I'd actually be surprised. Like, I haven't seen that list. Like, folks that would ask for that list, I wouldn't be able to provide one, because it can change, right? And it's not always a specific brand that's doing the reporting. Maybe they have an agency that they've employed to do this. My recommendation when it comes to brands and when it comes to Bureau is, if you don't own the intellectual property and you are pricing your items low, or you're advertising in a way that disrupts, maybe their vision of what their business should look like or how they want that product supported, you're going to be at risk, period, whether it's on a list or not. I would be cautious of that for sure. Yes.
What if I do own the brand? Can I stop anybody else from selling that brand?
You can stop them from using your intellectual property, meaning if they're taking your stock image and if they're copying directly your text that you've created and it belongs to you, then yes, you can. If you're trying to use it to enforce MAP or something of that nature, that's not its intent. If somebody buys your brand, your product, and they take their own images and they write their own descriptions and develop their own structured data, then eBay doesn't have any issues with that. If somebody is stealing, I use the term stealing, but if they are taking your content that is yours, your registered content, and using that for their own purposes, then that's a different animal, and that's where Bureau comes into play. And you can register with our Bureau site as a brand and intellectual property owner and manage it that way. Vero, V-E-R-O.
Verified rights ownership.
Thank you. Sir.
Yeah, quick question to follow up on the lady who asked about the camera, the brand new camera, and they returned it as damaged. What happens, like, I know we have sold some stuff where if you were to return it to a regular store or something, they won't accept it. You have to return it directly to the manufacturer, like, let's say a computer or certain things like that. Is that the same policy with eBay? Like, you can't return it because the reseller a lot of times can't take it back.
I'm sorry. So I'm gonna repeat that question back to you, because I'm not sure I followed. So your question is potentially you can't take returns because you're not authorized to give a return because it has to go back to the manufacturer. Is that?
If the seal is broken, if the outer box is damaged in travel, it's one thing, but if they open it up, say only pieces came through, whatever,
No.
then usually the manufacturer won't take it back.
No, and so there are opportunities within eBay and our returns flows where you can offer partial refunds, things of that nature, to help in those situations. There's not an end-all solve for that. If somebody states, that I changed my mind, it's buyer's remorse or something like that, then obviously that's a different animal, and we could say no return accepted for that reason. Car and automotive parts and accessories, we run into that a lot, where somebody's actually installed a product or something of that nature. And so, in those instances, though, where somebody says for a different reason and they return it, that it does make it more difficult. Partial refunds are an option, but that can still create some friction in regard to the buyer experience.
What happens usually, like, if it's damaged?
It will go through like a mediation process, but at the same time, you have to understand, like eBay, like being kind of in the middle, going through mediation, it's very difficult for us to, like, we ask for images, we ask for context, we ask for help, but we'll do the best we can with what we have, not being able to touch or move the product. It's a good question, though. Thank you. Please.
They have product rankings. Does eBay have a product rankings, for each category?
So the question is whether or not we have product rankings for each category.
For example, if I were to go to a store, I can scan any barcode and see what ranking that product is on Amazon. And therefore, I can know whether it's a good buy, not a solid, not so good.
No, you won't necessarily see product rankings on eBay. What you can do is if you're scanning that barcode or that product, a lot of times, especially if it's in our catalog of products, we'll pull up a marriage of other eBay listings that fit that bill, and you can make a decision there. One of the things that we're going to be rolling into our seller hub eventually, and last year Terapeak was an acquisition of eBay. Terapeak is a fairly robust listing analytics and marketplace analytics tool. And you'll see more of that content actually feeding into Seller Hub, where we're going to be able to give, maybe pricing guidance, things of that nature. And when we start, thinking ahead in terms of, if I'm sourcing product, what am I sourcing? Like, what am I looking for? There are opportunities for that there too. I can't commit to that as of yet. For now, the best way to research on eBay is either through live search, plus you can actually modify the search criteria over to completed listings and look at the success. Like, what have other people sold that item for? It's a little more tedious, I think, than what you're looking for, but that's one way a lot of folks will do it. How do they determine what products to buy? So, and you have to be in tune with the marketplace. You have to be in tune with your own inventories, and you do have to experiment a little bit with eBay. Like, I don't have any silver bullets, unfortunately, that will say, like, this is what we need sourced right now, and this is what we'll sell right at this moment. So for the time being, that especially over the short term and near future, doing that product research on eBay, exploring our site is the best way to learn about that. You had a question, yes.
Greg said that 64% is sales goes beyond mobile. So it's better to make a shorter description of the items. Usually people on mobile do not like searching on that much. Is it better just to make a few small bullet points? Is that a possibility to make the sales better?
So the question is in regard to mobile optimization and how to best do it. And so I will say yes. Like I always like shorter descriptions anyways. Like, if you've looked at especially old eBay, like years ago, if you've been on eBay for a while, you used to see these item descriptions that look like a user agreement. Absolutely nobody read them. Like, it was awful. And I get nervous when I see like too many paragraphs in an email come to me, let alone when I'm trying to shop. So I do recommend like a brief product description, bullet. These are my features. These are the benefits of this product. The other thing to note, though, too, if you're looking at a listing on a mobile device, you're going to see that the description is something you actually have to click into. So eBay is going to show the image, but what we're going to put above the fold are what we call product attributes or item specifics. And those are places where you can say, this is the brand, this is the weight, this is the height, this is, you can customize and come up with your own. You can use the ones eBay recommends as far as maybe certain carat weight ranges on, diamond rings or whatever the case may be. Like, that stuff sits above the fold. Like, it's important to fill that out and make that as robust as possible. And then, within your description, the body of the description, put that definition there. But absolutely, yeah, long descriptions do not work. I don't think they work on desktop either, to be honest, because I'm lazy. I won't read them. Are you allowed to copy a description? The answer is no. You should not be copying somebody else's descriptions. If it's, language is similar in terms of, if it's a red coat, it's a red coat. If it's a, black Nike shoe, it's a black Nike shoe. Like, there are things.
I'm saying, like, I sell health ingredients or on over-counted, so basically they already broke down all the features of this medicine, something like that.
And you can do it to a point, but if you are copying and pasting that content and that seller were to report you to our policy team and they can see evidence that happened, they'll probably remove your listing.
And then another thing is, let's say I'm selling baby formula. I'm having a very hard time listing that. Is there a certain expiration date? What is it, like 6 months or a year? Or I have to specifically write a text that doesn't...
Yeah, and so the question is around baby formula in specific, where we're talking about items that have an expiration date on them, and it could range from anything in some of our home and garden. I believe it has to have at least 30 days left, but you do have to state in the listing that this is the exact expiration date that's on the product. But the thing is, it doesn't have to necessarily be exact. So a lot of folks that will sell like baby formula, like Enfamil or something like that, I've seen them use a strategy where they list everything kind of, they bring in new product and it's got different expiration dates, but they're all newer. And so as they get closer to that last one and they sell out of that, they continue to use that same reasonable and expected expiration date, but they'll sell something that has, 30 more days than what they advertised or something of that nature. It helps keep the pressure down on having to do the revisions in a single line of text, which you're talking about. But there's not, because of, like, we do have a pretty rigid expiration policy, there's not a quick way through it, unfortunately. You still have to write it out in that text. Any other questions? Sorry, I feel very chatty. This is good, right? All right. Just wait till the booth. The booth is where it gets fun. People ask real questions and they get angry at us. Yes. You can. I mean, yeah. So the question is whether or not you can use FBA to fulfill orders on eBay, and the answer is yes, you can. Especially for those merchants that, to your point, I think what you were saying is, some of these merchants don't have their own warehouse. They store their goods with Amazon. Amazon does the pick, pack, ship fulfillment, and it provides a great benefit for your business. So you can do that. Where you'll run into challenges is, sometimes getting tracking information converted over to eBay that makes sense can be difficult. Getting that content uploaded. Obviously, Amazon doesn't necessarily like to service the eBay customers in a way that makes eBay super happy, and I would assume eBay's not going to go out of their way to service Amazon customers that way either, so it's fair. But it does work, but a lot of times there's some extra work on your end in order to make sure that customer experience is still good, and they still receive a tracking number that makes sense and is cross-platformed. Yes, you had a question?
If we have items in multiple warehouses across America, does eBay prefer us to write something big like multiple locations for that location, or should we put our location? Like, what should we do?
So I never prefer vagueness, and so the question is, if I have multiple locations, distribution centers, how do I describe that in my eBay listing? eBay obviously right now does not allow for multiple destination inventory management. My recommendation is to pick usually the one that gets serviced potentially most often. Maybe it's one that is more centralized, because if you use generic terms, it does protect you in a sense that people aren't going to assume or think that they got the product from the wrong place. But the problem and the challenge you run into is eBay does use those locations to help put definition behind shipping expectations. And so if you are using multiple locations, my recommendation is looking at product type A. If product type A seems to sell, and everything sells East Coast. I mean, that's where I do most of my eBay business, is probably 80% East Coast. But when looking at it, if I have a warehouse, in Pittsburgh or something of that nature, I definitely want to pick that one to service the vast majority of my Eastern business. Now, if I happen to be selling a lot of products that maybe are a little heavier in California or the upper Midwest, then I would choose a separate location. But it's one of those where you just kind of have to almost throw a dart. Because we don't support it, there's not a great solution for it. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'll expect a lot of activity at the booth. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.